every successful person got there by going through tough times. Success is a hard-ass teacher who likes to knock you around along that journey. You know, it takes real guts to not give up and keep going. We'll hear stories about failures and how these leaders flip the script to create success. I'm John Schultz. Join me and let's discover how success is never really overnight. Welcome to the John Schultz podcast. This is going to be a good one. This is someone that I've known since he got into the business, which is making me old. That's okay. I'm still alive, I'm still healthy, still going. But I've been able to watch the topic of my podcast. What does that mean? I've watched the myth of overnight success from this gentleman, Borko Milosev. And to have him on, I'm actually proud. I'm not related to him. I've just known him and he has such a good energy. And I'm always cheering for success. And when it comes to someone like him, not only am I cheering, I'm shouting from the rooftops. And we're going to hear his story. He's Post Road Management, LLC. He's the CEO. It started in 2011. He's got a whole career before that, obviously. What I also love about this man is he just is balanced. He gets in work 100%, but he's also an accomplished mountaineer, a triathlon, a triathlete, anything to push the limits of what he thought he could believe in doing, he tries to do. And it's a lesson to everyone. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great, man. So, all right. So where'd you grow up? We start from the beginning because I think, when you're younger, it really shapes like your ideas, and that it could be that it's something you went through when you were younger that like pushed you to be that next thing. So how would you describe yourself and how would your parents describe you?
So background, in terms of background, I grew up in Serbia. I was born in Serbia, lived there till I was 18 and came to America to study abroad as a high school student, as an exchange student in high school. After that, stayed for college and then met our mutual friend who gave me an opportunity.
Which is Rob Barone. We could say his name. He doesn't like doing, people saying his name, but we're saying his name.
Yes. So what's interesting, and I'll get into, working with Rob and all that fun stuff. What's interesting, even while I was in Serbia, I always wanted to come to America. My brother says that he recalls like pretty young me at young age. He actually talks about us watching movie Wall Street and me saying, hey, I want to do this, and him being like, shut up, kid. Like, what do you know? You're like 8 or however old I was. So there was always this desire to come that I can't really explain. And I was fortunate enough where my parents agreed to send me abroad, as I said, as an exchange student. And then when I came here, I did anything that I needed to do in order to kind of make sure that I stay. And the easiest way was education. So I enrolled to a local college. It's actually the same school that Rob Barone went, Moravian College, now Moravian University. Through that, get to know him. He gave me an internship, then a full-time job. I went and worked for him for about 10 years. And that's all before I started a company.
So talk about that, because you made that sound too simple, right?
Yeah.
I mean, here you are, you're in a place that you really know nobody.
Yeah.
You went to college. How did you meet a Rob Barone person, right? Because you had to have the courage to go out there after you got here and actually figure it out.
Yeah. So I guess before even I met him, when I was, I was a pretty good student back in Serbia. And then once I started getting into high school, I wanted to have friends and chase girls and have fun and all that good stuff. But then coming to America, I realized that it was either sink or swim. So all I did was work really, really hard. And that was at school. And proud to say that I ended up being valedictorian, 4.0 grade point average, double major, wrote an honor thesis and so on and so forth. And my thinking there was that actually, what one of the things that incentivized me, I remember meeting another foreign student who was doing an MBA. When I told him what my dreams were of going to New York, and at that time I thought I was going to work on Wall Street, he's just sort of brushed me off and said, "You're never going to make it there, right? You go to Moravian, they recruit from Harvard, and things like that." So it got me really mad, and I'm like, "Well, I'm gonna work hard. I'm gonna be the best, given the circumstance and where I am, right? I'm Moravian. I couldn't kind of change that at that point." And so I ended up feel like kicking ass there, the best that I could. So when so how I met Rob is, in addition to studying, I would work every waking hours that I could, right? So at school, it allowed you to work so many hours a week. I worked some stuff outside of school, which is important. I can talk about it because he also led me a little, to real estate. But during the time off or when there were holidays, I would work at school, and one of the places I worked for was alumni office. And again, through the conversation, sort of, what do you want to do? And I explained to them, say, hey, look, we have this database. Why don't you look at who is in New York that might be able to help you? So I went to the database, and I put New York City. I kind of put financial institutions, and I selected a very specific year of graduations. I didn't want somebody that's too young and couldn't really help me, and somebody that's much older and very towards the tail end of their career and just might not care. So not surprisingly, Moravian, I guess, I got a very short list, and Rob was on one of them. And so I emailed Rob, and for those that don't know Rob has an OCD, right, an ADD. So, or rather ADD, not an OCD, but I was lucky that he responded in 10, 15 minutes. He must have been an email at that point in time. If he wasn't, I probably would have never gotten a response. But he sort of responded back and said, hey, come into New York City and, let's chat. And so I ended up going, meeting with him. He was starting a large loan group at that time, moving from Charlotte, building out his team. And he said, come on, I'll give you a job for a month. And I think he was paying me something like $200 a week. It was barely enough to even pay for a bus ticket to commute from Bethlehem to New York, which was, I think, over a 2-hour bus ride back and forth. And, I didn't have money. My parents were sort of middle class in Serbia, so really couldn't afford a college. I had to work in the summer. I remember talking to another alumni and telling them, look, I have this dilemma. I could go and work for a great alum in New York City, do kind of what I wanted to do, or I could stay here and work the summer just to pay for school. So I got some good coaching there where they, and that was the first lesson in negotiations, where they told me, go back to your college and explain to them what opportunities you have, and tell them, they'll be making a mistake if they don't help you out. And sure enough, it kind of worked out. I remember the CFO of college literally pulled a checkbook, and he was like, how much are you going to make in the summer? And he was like, $5,000. He's like, here's a check for $5,000. Now go and, chase your dreams, and you'll pay us back when you can. So
that's amazing. I hope you still talk to that person, or no?
So he's retired. I see him at functions. Because of acts like that, and because of meeting Rob, I'm very loyal to Moravian, so I still do a lot. So oftentimes I'll see him at different events and different functions, and I tell this story to a lot of people because I think it's so unique.
Well, Rob's a giver.
Yes.
You said, he is a genuine giver. So I can see why he would help you. And whatever Rob's in, he's loyal to, like, he's got amazing loyalty, right? So,
yes.
So that's so cool. So you commuted from Bethlehem.
So
for
how
long did that last? So
that was about 2 weeks. I don't know if they were trying to see if they can shake me off. And then when they realized they couldn't, they actually ended up getting me a corporate housing, but probably lasted for about 2-3 weeks. And then incidentally, I was going to leave, and I had another internship lined up to work for a Moravian alum who ran a Johnson & Johnson medical division in Istanbul, Turkey. And so, I work hard for Rob, and, our internship is coming towards the end. And I said, look, I'm about to leave. So why don't you stay? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I have to explore different options, graduating in about a year. I got to broaden my network, see, what I can do. So he's like, well, how about if you stay and you continue to do well? What if I offer you a job after you graduate, right? And that sort of changed everything. I ended up staying the rest of the summer with him, and true enough, I went back to finish my senior year, and it's mid September. I had an offer in hand, which made it for a very fun a senior year.
It's amazing.
And yeah,
It's amazing. All
so
right, so you worked for Rob now, and it was Wachovia, right?
yeah, so you're right. I first interned with him. I really got hooked on real estate. As I mentioned, I wanted to kind of do Wall Street and stocks because that's what I thought or see in the movies what the financing is. But then he opened a whole new world of real estate and met some really cool people, including yourself, that were doing some amazing stuff. And as a young 20-some-year-old impressionary guy, I sort of was like, well, this is what I want to do. So even after when I left internship and came back from my senior year, I started looking for real estate, and the easiest entry point for me was single family homes. And in particular, I was looking at REO properties, real estate owned properties. At that time, there was a much different environment, much different technology than it's today. So I would go on a hot website and pull the deeds and do my own like comp analysis and things like that, and ended up actually buying a first house a few months into my senior year. It was a distressed property, needed a lot of repair. I was I guess in a good way ignorant, where even though I wasn't really skilled to do things. I thought, well, if other people can do it, I can do it. So I ended up buying a Home Depot 1, 2, 3 book and learning how to install windows and how to hang kitchen cabinets, and hiring some of my college buddies to help me with like some of those basics. And so that was my first home that I bought, and then after I graduated, I went to work for Rob. I would commute back and forth whenever I had a weekend off, which wasn't a much. I would come back to Lehigh Valley and was sort of first chasing single family homes. And then eventually in 2005, bought my first multi deal, which was a 16 unit project here in Bethlehem as well.
All right, so let's talk about this. So you're working a job, but you have this work ethic that's amazing, and because you had to, right? You basically were in school and you had to make money to survive. So that trained you for not being afraid to do more and getting out of your box. And it's funny, like you said, you bought your first home. People come to me all the time and say, how do I get into real estate? You're my story. Like I tell your story. I'm like, well, I know someone who just bought that first house, didn't know what they were doing, but wasn't afraid to fail, wasn't afraid to learn, knew it may not be perfect. And what's so good about real estate, because we live in it, we eat in it, we shop in it, we go on vacation in it. It's everything, right? It's a huge market segment. But you can enter real estate because you can just buy a small home and rent it out, and that can be your start. So you're working at Wachovia, right, with Rob for years and years and years, and you're doing this side gig. I'm sure you had a lot of challenges and failures through it. What would you say was the one thing that said, like, why am I doing this moment like that? But you kept going. Was there any cool stories?
I really never had that doubt. What ended up, the only thing that comes to mind is eventually, right, as I kind of continued to buy and aggregate some units and had a couple hundred units, and at one point had some employees, it was becoming very apparent that I couldn't do both. And like I love Rob. I mean, he was best man in my wedding. I consider him my American dad type of thing, my brother. And it was, I never thought like it was very hard for me to think about even leaving him, right? But this was, this was something that was a passion. And it was him actually who came and kind of encouraged. He saw it and he said, look, I think you got to do this. You got to pursue it. And at first I didn't understand it, right? I felt like I was being pushed out from somebody that, you genuinely love and respect so much. So it took me maybe about a year to kind of process and realize, and I always say Rob is generally always right. So, but I didn't see it at that time. Like I said, it took about a year maybe to realize it, then sat down with him and said, look, I think you're right. I got to pursue this. And, he was very supportive when it happened. As a matter of fact, through the conversation, telling him what I wanted to do, we found a way to work together, and to this day we are partners.
That's like the first of all, like you had a little separation anxiety because listen,
Yes.
you're from another country. He was your dad
Yeah.
in a good way and friend. I
Yes.
mean, however you want to, it's how you feel of what he is, and he supported you and it gave you that little push, which I always feel like there's always someone that's there pushing us, and if we just open ourselves to feeling it because it could be someone you don't even know that well, but you happen to be with them, right? I think people come in and out of your life for all these different reasons. And Rob, not only was he there for most reasons, he's still there, and you guys are partners. So, okay, you had this side gig. It was one house. I think you got up to 90 houses, right? Or some to talk about like the volume,
Yes.
talk about what was your next move where you
Yeah.
had to have guts
Yeah.
because you had a system that you knew, but then you had to morph into something else.
Yeah. So actually, we bought a couple houses starting in 2003. In 2005, started buying multis. Bought a couple, and then, as you know, six, seven, and eight. Actually was disciplined enough that I wasn't buying into those years, which was a good thing. And then '08, '09, kind of, liquidity crisis, similar to maybe what we're going through now. So there was just not a lot of activity. And then in 2010 and 11, when things started to open up, I ended up buying a bunch of distressed properties, some bankruptcy sales, note buys, and things of that nature, all multifamily. So by 2012, I had, as I mentioned, a couple hundred units. I had, I believe, 4 or 5 employees, and I made a couple bucks, had a little bit of savings. My thinking is, all right, I'm gonna quit. I had a good thing going on with Robert. I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna give this 2 years, see if I can make it work. If it doesn't, I'm gonna beg for my job back. So what I thought at that time was that in 2012 there was a lot of money was going into the smart money was going to single family space. So the idea is that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to aggregate it, buy a bunch of REOs, aggregate it, and sell them to bigger private equity
And
groups.
you had the track record of like you've been doing it for a long time already. So it wasn't like it was something new, right?
No, that's right. That's right. And so Rob actually, his idea was, hey, why don't I help you raise a fund and we do this together? And that's what we did. And so we ended up actually about 140 single family homes. It was more of a development model than just buying wholesale and sell, But we ended up doing a fairly extensive renovations and upgrades and things like that. But then I learned also very quickly that it's really tough business, very granular, and there were plenty of opportunities in multifamily space. So we kind of pivoted into more of a multifamily space, which is our bread and butter.
And which is
Having said
apartments,
that,
right? So
which
you've
is
been buying
apartments, yeah,
apartments.
yeah, and it's we buy Class B and C apartments, workforce housing, primarily like looking to buy. What we love to buy is other people's headaches, right, or issues, things that have been neglected, dilapidated. As you know, there's people that reinvest in their properties, and there are people that suck properties dry and don't reinvest the capital. We make money from those guys, right? We'll go in and we'll invest the capital and put in the time and effort that's needed to make sure the property is cash flowing the way it should be. Um,
Good.
and interestingly enough, the business model is not much different from buying that single family home in 2013. It's looking for what the property can be once it's repaired and fixed up versus what it is today. So it's just same thing, but on
Well,
a
and I
little bigger
totally
scale.
agree. It's because it's like once you get the mechanics, it's almost like it's the same process you go through no matter how small or big the deal is, right? Yes,
That's
there's
right.
different risk profiles and you may get a little more nervous by taking such a large project on, but that's what's really in any industry. I think that's the same thing. But okay, regardless of that, you had this 2 year mindset, which means you just weren't afraid to try something and get out of your box. And what I love that you said, I'll go back and get what I had before. Like a lot of people are scared to take the chance because they're worried that like it's lost forever. Like nothing's permanent. We know
Yes.
that nothing in life is
Yes.
permanent, right?
Yes.
Good or bad. We just got to keep going. But what I'm intrigued by you, I mean, you had Rob and whoever else, they're investors. This is not what Rob did every day of his life. So he didn't really operate real estate. So you were really by yourself. And I guess, was that because of just the whole ability to come here from another country and be by yourself? Like, what gave you the strength and courage? And what were the challenges of that?
Yeah. So I love the line of the success leaves clues. So it's a lot of it was talking to people, through the career at being in New York and meetings, getting myself exposed to some very successful and interesting people, including yourself, and learning from them. And I remember asking one of them sort of, why is it that these guys that do so well versus some that don't. And one of the response was, it was more graphic than I'm going to say here, but it was basically that they had more guts, and I knew that I needed to lean into it. Now it doesn't mean do something that is not well thought out. So I agree with you. I do lean into things, right? Like if I don't have that, a little bit of that butterflies in my stomach, I'm probably not growing as much as I should. But with that said, I do, at least I feel that I measure three times before I cut, if you will. So I'll make sure that all the I's are dotted, T's crossed before we get into it. And knock on wood, we have had fairly good success, right? Our deal profile, we were able to achieve fairly good rates of return because we've been careful. But again, knowing that you gotta push, you gotta take those risks.
And why'd you pick Bethlehem, Lehigh Valley? Because in theory, you're in this big city around lots of big suburbs with lots of action. Candidly, most of your contacts are here. You spent years, dude, 10 years, right? We do business out in that area too. It's a different world. I mean, it's not the same. What made you do that? Was it like a big fish in a small pond? Like what made you do it?
So a couple of things. One is, in some way, Lehigh Valley might have picked me. I ended up landing here. A family picked me out of Lehigh Valley. That was where I landed when I came as an exchange student, and I'm going to college here. So it was the market that I knew. And as you know, real estate, right? The three rules of real location, location, location. So I understood the micro market, right? I knew street by street, block by block. The differences, right, or where to buy, where not to buy. And then to your point, right, it's bigger fish in a smaller pond. It wasn't as competitive as something like New York City, right? So it allowed you to procure deals that would generate greater rates of return and take less risk than some other markets. With that said, we have moved on. We are now pretty much in everywhere in all of Pennsylvania, and have started to jump into different states or buying outside of Pennsylvania. Still,
So how many units do you have now?
So at the moment, it's about 4,000. At the high point, I think we had 14,000 apartments. But our business plan and strategy has been to buy, do the work, and then sort of exit. So more of that opportunistic type of a buyer than buy and hold and aggregate and just grow.
So listen to this, everyone. It came from one multifamily home. So 14,000 at its height and still going in a whole nother cycle to deal with that's similar to when you started. So, and all the grit and dedication got Borko to where he is today, and he should be proud of himself. But there's challenges along the way. If you could give me the two or three or two challenge, like what challenged you the most? Because here, it all looks good from the outside. Where did you see your biggest growth moments? Where was there a time maybe that you felt, it was like out of your control? Is there any part of the journey that you could point out to show the audience that it's not always what it seems?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of not always what it seems, it's a lot of work, right? I mean, I still work 6 days a week. When I left New York and came to back to Lehigh Valley, I actually worked 7 days a week, and I realized that it's unsustainable, right? I would roll out of my bed. I actually had a home office at that time. It was way before COVID. I would roll out of my bed, have a quick breakfast. I would start working at 6, and I would work till my head dropped, literally. And then after some period of time, I realized that it's unsustainable, right? You can't do productive work when you're tired. So I ended up establishing these limits where I have a hard stop 8 p.m. Because I go to bed early, I go to bed by 9. So I had a hard stop 8 p.m. and I would not work Saturdays. But even to this day, I have a lot of friends who I grew up with in Serbia that will look at me and be like, "What's wrong with you?" Right? That doesn't resonate well with a lot of people. Maybe with the New York crowd does, but even with people in Lehigh Valley, they say, "Hey, there's more to life than just work," right? So that certainly is the challenge. As you know, I mean, today is a challenging market. The challenges are with equity, well, any type of capital liquidity, right? Whether it's equity or debt. There's challenges with procuring deals. I think my betting average is near zero in the last year and a half, 2 years. It's been very hard, even though we are working very hard to procure deals. We are striking out a lot. So this environment has its set of challenges. And then even prior to the market correction, we were getting to a point where operationally I felt we were hitting our ceiling. I joke with people that we're like a 12-year-old startup where we never had an opportunity to sit back and I don't want to say we have no structure, but it's not, we didn't roll out, the structure kind of emerged, but it wasn't necessarily well thought out. We didn't have, not all the departments had like KPIs and SOPs and type of things of that nature. So we actually taking the opportunity of the downturn in the market, if you will, to grow internally. Where we've hired somebody and we're going through that process where we're thinking of how do we position ourselves so that when next upswing in the market happen, which it will eventually, we're in a position where we can take advantage of it.
It's funny. I mean, 14,000 units, and you're just thinking about structure now, which people should understand because, like, it's never perfect.
Yeah.
It's like drinking from a fire hose when you're growing, right? And so, how did you build? Okay, and you're a crazy workaholic, and not everyone needs to be at your company for that because it's. How do you get people to have that culture and own it like you feel like you own it? And because
Yeah.
like even though you had no structure, then you're not a micromanager, right? So you had to let people do their job to actually make your company and their company a success. So how did that form? What were the challenges in that and where is it today?
Yes. I mean, I think we attracted like people, sort of like likes attracted, and then
Right.
if people don't have that mentality, they generally don't last. They realize this is not for them and they'll be happier elsewhere. With that said, I mean, truth be told, is part of that problem, John, is that maybe the reason why I work still 6 days a week is because I haven't figured out a way to properly delegate, and so those are things that I'm working on now.
So you're, which is good. I mean, like self-awareness, right, of what you need to do. And we're
Yes.
going to have a next big cycle, right? If you just look at what's gone on with rates, 400-500 basis points higher in a very fast period of time, it's going to create a lot of opportunities. Are you seeing many of those? I mean, because now it's rates higher for longer. Everyone thought we're going to get this reprieve. We haven't gotten it. Are you seeing distress out there in the world of what you do?
We are, but it's hard to make sense of any of it yet. Yesterday I spent a day in Philly walking a portfolio with a sponsor, with the owner, but we're really also talking to the bank at the same time. I mean, the guy's equity is toast. We're trying to figure it out. So we are. I mean, next week I'm planning to fly into Indiana. There's another property that's 30% occupied, great state of disrepair. So I'm starting to see this, but having said that, not a lot of deals are still making sense. The lenders are still not willing to accept that the
It's
values
the
are
mark to
less than
market thing, right?
the
Yeah, it's like,
market thing, right? So it's kind of looking, trying, waiting for if that's going to ever happen, or maybe market is going to catch up and you're going to be there at the table once the market catch up and can make those deals.
well, listen, they're going to be here. What you've learned is it never happens when, how, or the way we'd like, but it does happen, right? Just like nothing's permanent, things move and change, and we just got to be there for them. And hopefully, you know, you saw your blind spots, you brought it up, right? Your infrastructure, and now if you just apply that, you're going to go to the moon. But being a person that likes to push himself, this triathlon thing. I mean, like you just said, you work 6 days a week, go to bed at 9. You have a family. How did you get involved in that? Was that just to de-stress yourself to the point where you can go to bed at 9, or and why did you need that challenge?
Yes, so that's a good question. So, and yes, it was part of the stress. I mean, he actually started doing it during the 2007 2008 downturn. We were working a lot at Wachovia, and all of a sudden, right, the music stopped. We had all this free time, and it was like dogs off the leash. Young guy going out all the time, taking clients out, drinking, eating, and after a couple of months, I'm like, this is not a good path for me, right? I'm out there 3 4 nights a week, entertaining, drinking. I need to find a different way to channel my energy. So I ended up start doing triathlons. But it was like first thing in the morning, and it helped me tremendously at work. Right. Eventually, the market came back, and Rob and I ended up, or he started Ironhand, and I ended up going working for him as employee number one. Was restructuring, as you know, it's tough work. It's very challenging, and this was my kind of a drug. Right. I would go in the morning, I would do my run, or I would do my swim, and I felt great, perfectly balanced. Right, going there and dealing with issues that would come. If I didn't, it would be a rougher day. So ended up being a way to kind of get some of that nervous energy out. And ever since
But dude, like people, they go do a half-hour treadmill like 3 times a week to do that.
so
What pushed you to? I mean, you went to a whole another
yes,
level, that because
yes,
it's no joke.
that's the way I trick myself. If I say to myself, I'm just going to go work out, then it's easy for me to wake up in the morning and be like, I'm so busy, I really don't have time for this. I'm going to do it tomorrow. But if I pick a goal and I say, okay, I'm going to do this race, then it's not negotiable, right? Like that's where I trick
So you
myself to
set
actually do
goal.
it.
You set you. It's a hack, right? It's a
Yes, it's a hack.
Borko hack.
For
It's
me,
like,
hack. Yeah.
which I think is what I try to do too, right? You make it where you can't, you don't want to fail,
Yes.
right? So you have a goal that you have to achieve, and you do. It's
Yes.
great.
And
Good
if
for
yeah, if you
you.
don't set it up, like I said, then it's loose. But this was a way to make it non-negotiable.
And I know you have a beautiful wife and daughter.
Thank you. Two
So
daughters.
so where do they fit into this whole scheme? Because I see all the time. You're always so happy when you're around your family. So
Yeah. So I still work from home a decent amount. Having young families, so I get the chance to I wake up, I take the morning shift with let wife sleep in, so I'll be with my girls, we eat breakfast and things like that. Then they go off to school. I do my work. Also, then I'll come home at 4 or 5, spend a little bit of time with them. I try to take them and do different activities, or even now, like we have a gym at home. So if I'm doing a workout, I grab them, they do it with me. When I was hiking, when they were very young, I would put them in the backpack, and then hike with them. So I try to find, ways to intertwine them. Tony Robbins has that great line called net time, no extra time, where you kind of combine things.
yeah,
And I've again have some hacks where I'm able to like combine activities
In lending, it's blend and extend, right? Like
Yeah,
keep it going, keep it
yeah,
all
that's
going.
right.
Same
That's
thing.
right.
Well, that's tremendous. Wow. So you're a very young person that achieved an inordinate amount of success coming from someplace new that didn't know anyone, anything, or what to do. What would you give younger people, younger adults, even people that want to change their career, right? Because I think we're all living longer, and like second acts, like are I think going to be the biggest thing that happens, especially during the AI. We're in a revolution here, right? Like everything's going to change. So what would you give people to think about?
I think it's two things. One is focus, right? You have to identify one thing that you really are passionate about, or wanna achieve, whatever that might be. Might sometimes maybe you're not passionate, but at least you enjoy it. But so one is focus and the other is grit, right? Just being relentless. Once you identify what that is and you define your focus, not giving up.
Do you find, forget passion, right? Because like I have certain passions that a grit doesn't apply, right? So it's almost like living in your character traits that best are you in some industry or thing. Don't you think that makes grit a bigger force? Because if you didn't, if you didn't like it, you wouldn't stay as long. You may quit sooner, right? Same thing with triathlons, right? Like you have to like triathlons to the point where the grit kicks in. So you feel that's a formula for yourself?
I think so. I think so. And I think, remember listening the story, where I think it was Bill Gates' father had a dinner, and he was, all these successful people, including Warren Buffett, and had them all write one thing, one thing that they made him successful. And, both Bill and Warren, focus was the thing. And 100%, right? Like it's like sunlight, right? The sunlight is so dispersed, it throws a lot of energy, but it's dispersed. You're okay to be exposed to it, but you have a little bit of energy via laser, hyper focused, cut through the diamond, right? To cut through the metal.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense. And I reflecting back, I mean, I'm young, but not super young, right? And relatively speaking, I started family later in life, right? I'm 40, I'm going to be 43. My oldest is 4 years old. Everything prior to that was work. There was, yes, I included exercise, etc., but it was also a way to hack the work because it gave me more energy, kept me more focused. I was more balanced and things like that. But when I looked at life prior to that, there was nothing else. It was 100%, 110% focused on work.
Well, hopefully this artificial intelligence revolution will be that you can create 3 or 4 Borkos that are doing a lot of the other stuff so that maybe you could maybe take a vacation or you could do other things. But listen, I just want to say, kudos to you.
Thank you.
You're an example of greatness. And I want to thank you for being on the show. People are going to love this story. You're in an industry I love. We both love it. And it's ever changing. And I think the next few years will be interesting. And we'll all get through it. And we'll find the exciting deals and ways to shape it in a positive way. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hi, John Schultz here. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. Would really appreciate it if you would like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. Looking forward to being with you soon.